Agentic AI, a perfect example of it working right is Iron Man. You have Tony Stark, who's above average human. He is an entrepreneur, he's handsome, he's rich, he's an inventor. So he's already above average human. He becomes a superhero.
First of all, you got it really right. Iron Man is my favorite superhero. And I think it's probably because I love that dynamic of the human and the machine coexisting and becoming more powerful together than they are separate.
AI gets positioned as a magic wand in talent acquisition, or TA, but experienced TA leaders know better. Today, we're unpacking where automation actually works, where it doesn't, and how the ATS is evolving into something much more powerful. With me today is Trent Cotton, Head of Talent Acquisition Insights and Analyst Relations, and Lisa Fiondella, Senior Vice President, AI, Data, and Platform at iCIMS, a client-centric enterprise hiring platform trusted by some of the world's top organizations and built on more than 2 decades of experience. Since 2000, iCIMS has evolved alongside talent acquisition, and today they're shaping what AI and automation actually look like inside the ATS. With AI everywhere in TA right now, what's real? What's noise? And what are TA leaders misunderstanding about automation?
Let's start with a very clear definition of AI, because I know Lisa and I did the conference circuit last fall, and I think one of the things that we found is that the AI is thrown around pretty broadly. All right, so let's think of three buckets. I'm going to make it very easy for the non-technical people. You have AI. Think of this as do this for me. It's very prescriptive. If this, then that. So if you're in recruiting, think when you move a candidate from recruiter interview to recruiter completed, you want an email sent out to them. That's automation. So you can kind of set it and forget it. I would not encourage that, but set it and forget it. Next, you have conversational AI or Gen AI. So that's your LLMs, that's your Gemini, your Claude, your ChatGPT. This is ideate, research with me. The human is still in control. You've got a really powerful sidekick that's helping you do your work, but you are still the one that is maintaining absolute control over it. And where we're moving into is agentic AI. So this is do this like me, do this with me, and if I tell you to, do this for me. Agentic AI, a perfect example of it working right is Iron Man. You have Tony Stark, who's above average human. He is an entrepreneur, he's handsome, he's rich, he's an inventor. So he's already above average human, but he becomes a superhero whenever he puts on that augmentation. So his Jarvis is that agentic AI. There are certain things that Jarvis is not going to ask for permission for. Example, missile being fired at them as they're flying in the air. Jarvis isn't going to say, hey, do you want me to dodge the missile? He's going to dodge the missile. But then if you watch the movie, he and Tony are going back and forth and kind of working together. And that's the exciting part about agentic and where we're going to be able to go. And I will say that it sounds kind of weird because normally, Denise, I am on recruiting things. I'm kind of the AI expert, but we actually literally have an AI expert on the phone. So Lisa, did I get all of that right?
First of all, you got it really right. And second of all, you know that Iron Man is my favorite
Yes.
superhero. And I think it's probably because I love that dynamic of the human and the machine coexisting and becoming more powerful together than they are separate. And I think that's really the way that we have to look at AI in talent acquisition. And just to give you a little bit of background on how iCIMS got to where it is today, we have been at this for a little while. This is not a new thing. Like just because agentic AI is a new term in the last year doesn't mean that we've just started talking about it. We've actually been sort of at this AI game for about 8+ years now. And so we've gone through a number of iterations of looking at the different types of AI that are out there and introducing tools that help our customers more effectively identify the right talent to interview and taking them through that talent process. We leverage a lot of different types of AI, and I know part of this conversation will be talking a bit about our responsible AI framework, and I look forward to that. But just in terms of how we think about being the Jarvis to the talent acquisition person is by providing things like chatbots for candidate experience, agents for interview, as an example. We recently acquired a company by the name of Appley to help us with the frontline candidate and hiring manager experience using AI. We've rolled out a sourcing agent in the last 6 months or so, and there's more like that to come. So I think it's really an exciting time in terms of the technology that's available to us. And I think as we think smartly about how to enable talent acquisition professionals using the right AI at the right time, then we have some really interesting opportunities. iCIMS is going through a branding exercise, and so all of our AI will be branded under a platform of Coalesce AI. I'm really excited about that.
And then Denise, if I can just jump back in, putting my practitioner hat back on, one of the things that you're going to, if I look into the market, I think you position this very well. There's a lot of hype and there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of shiny objects out there. Whenever I joined iCIMS, which was kind of weird, I was a client there for a while and now I'm on the vendor side. One of the things that really just kind of struck me that made me feel comfortable as a former practitioner is that everything that we're building, like Lisa and her team, they meet with clients a lot and they get feedback. And it's, you know, she's probably going to say, and I'm going to steal her thunder, but one of the favorite lines that she says whenever we're together is, we're going to meet people where they are. And I think that's incredibly important for the listener. We may be talking about agentic and you're just understanding what automation is. That's okay. That's okay. It's a journey. Just take one step at a time and don't get overwhelmed by all the shiny and all the hype that's out there.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I'm going to direct this back to Lisa, though. She had made some comments about iCIMS and kind of where you're at with your products and services. iCIMS has been around since 2000, as I had mentioned at the beginning. You've seen some compliance first ATS, candidate experience waves, and now AI. What have you learned from each cycle that's shaping how you approach AI today?
Yeah, great question. And so I think there's a couple of terms I might use. One is that the way we look at AI and like, for example, let's step back to what we really kind of started with. We did start with some lightweight AI components, but when we acquired a company about 6 years ago or so, who basically built and executed a matching and ranking system, we really dove head on into really kind of actually the highest risk category of AI. And so, as you know, I know we'll be talking about regulations, but as the regulations have continued to sort of ratchet up, that AI is something we have to really stay on top of in terms of ensuring that it is transparent and compliant and all the things that go along with giving our customers a tool to help them manage their pipelines of candidates. When you're flooded, when you post a role today, you're getting hundreds of candidates because of the way the job market is. You've got to know where you start, and first in, first out is not always the best option when managing a candidate pipeline. So to go back to your question, my apology, I got a little bit off track there. Is I think the way to look at this is AI is it's not something that sort of rides alongside your ATS, right? It's it and the various AI features of of an ATS system have to be present when they're needed, where they're needed, and in the user experience that is needed. So you would, a recruiter who's sitting there and working in a desktop application, managing a large funnel, managing a lot of activities associated with the entire process, needs tools available to them embedded within that workflow or available on that desktop. But a hiring manager is not going to be sitting there doing that thing. And a hiring manager who needs to confirm what the panel interview needs to look like probably that shouldn't be doing that in the iCIMS ATS. That should be done in some other tool. So that's the way we really look at introducing the various types of AI components, is making them available to the right persona at the right time with the right type of AI.
And I do want to kind of go back a little bit because part of this journey, I think that was, again, former practitioner, very highly regulated industries, just inundated with regulatory and compliance issues. or requirements, the way that we went about building our AI, it started with kind of looking at, all right, this is something that's going to be kind of a trend. This is something that's we really need to get ahead of, but we rooted it in our responsible AI framework. And Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everything that we run now that that has been validated, that process that we go about building AI responsibly has been certified by a third party source. And so everything that we do, Lisa's team has to follow that same framework to make sure that we're following the guidelines that we set up. And that helps our clients be able to understand that we are approaching this with their best interest in mind, and we're not just throwing out something that's going to put them at high risk. Lisa, is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me jump back in here then. You're calling your approach Coalesce AI. Why name it? And how is it different from bolting AI onto an ATS?
Yes, so we spent a lot of time talking about this, and we did feel like it needed to have a wrapper because what Trent just talked about in terms of our responsible AI program is one part of that wrapper. The other part is helping a customer understand what is AI in the ATS and what's not. Because when you're a purchaser of an ATS or CRM system, you've got to work with your legal and privacy and compliance teams to make sure they know exactly how this system is functioning so they'll sign off on your ability to use it, right? And so Coalesce AI is essentially a wrapper around all of our AI capabilities and components and will be the way we present to the market the different types of AI that we offer, where they sit in what products and what tools. And it also includes our responsible AI program. And that's something that, listen, I spent most of my career in financial services. This is my first foray into HR technology. I love this market space. It's just, there's just so many fantastic things about it. But one of the first questions I asked when I joined the company was, what are we doing with responsible AI? Because if we're starting from scratch, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. And if we have something in place already, fantastic. And the great news is it's been something that's front and center for iCIMS for quite a long time, ever since we actually got into AI, even before some of the current regulations and some of the current pressure points from customer compliance departments were really hitting us. So I feel like we're very much ahead of that game. Our program is really kind of grounded in three areas. One is just we actually have a policy and a program that we call AI governance. It is very well documented and defined. It has various committees within it that function across the enterprise to ensure that we're overseeing all the AI that's being considered and implemented. The second piece is around our bias testing and how we're ensuring that all of our AI is meeting the demands of the regulatory market, but also like that it actually performs and works. And then the third is what Trent really talked about, which is leveraging third parties to help us validate that while we say it's transparent and you can trust it, that other people are saying the same thing.
Well, you're still compliance first and Trust Arc certified. In a world racing toward AI, why does governance still matter? Why is it so important?
Growing up in highly regulated industries, I don't think that there's any chance that that's going to decrease anytime soon on a global scale. And I think everybody, I mean, all you have to do is open any news publication, and AI is, it's not the first story, it's the second one. And I think that if we don't stay on top of the notion of ensuring that this AI, because the real reality is the AI tools are going to continue to get smarter. They're going to continue to be have the ability to do things that we may not really want them to do because regulation and just business ethics say a human should do that. I personally don't want a machine hiring me. I want a human hiring me. And so I think that it's going to be really important for organizations who say we're AI first or we're AI centric to really be thinking about it from that perspective.
And Denise, if I can jump in just real quick, there is this notion that governance slows things down. I'm of the opinion that the right governance actually speeds things up. All right. And so maybe it slows things down on the front end because you're making sure that everything is compliant, it's meeting the regulatory requirements. But what people, they kind of focus on that part. What they don't focus on is if you don't have that and you go just blazing with AI and then you run into issues on the back end, it is 10 times the amount of time to try and retrofit. And so that's again, that's why we really focus on making sure that all of our AI products run through that framework because we really do believe that it enables us to not only increase speed, but also increase quality, which is very important for our end user.
Oh, so important. And thank you for that explanation. It's very helpful. A lot of vendors say they're client centric. What does best in client experience actually look like inside of an iCIMS product?
Oh, you're tapping on both of us because both of us are so passionate. I don't know if you saw Lisa and me both looking at who's gonna start this one. Actually, Lisa, I want you to talk about it because one of the experiences that you're so obsessed with is one you and I talked about in the industry nobody else is. So I'll let you take the first pass.
Okay, so yeah, this is definitely an area that I'm pretty passionate about, and I think as we spend a lot of time with our customers and various people in the market, it became not that hasn't been a thing for a long time, but one of the challenges and one of the opportunities with technology today is the tools allow us to, and I'll use the term, meet our customers where they are again. And but when you think about our customers, it's not just the recruiter. The recruiter is so important to the talent process, no doubt. And we are very committed to ensuring that the recruiter's experience is as robust, as simple, as easy to execute as possible. And I think it's very, in the past, technology sort of made it easy to complicate that. And I think we're at a point, an inflection point where we have an opportunity to actually simplify it. And that's really exciting. But the other piece of this is, there are other personas in the mix, right? I'm a hiring manager. I've been a hiring manager for many years. I am probably the worst bottleneck in the hiring process because I never get my interview feedback on time. People are chasing me to confirm a job description. It's my calendar's so crazy that they're rescheduling interviews left for I had 5 interviews this week, by the way, and that was exactly what transpired. 3 of them were rescheduled twice. So, but as a hiring manager, I'm integral to the hiring process. So, it's really important to that as a talent acquisition provider, system provider, we think about how we serve the hiring manager so they're not a bottleneck anymore. And so you'll hear us talking more about a lot of tools and services we're cooking up in the kitchen right now around that. And then really the other one is the candidate experience. And that's part of the reason we were so excited about the acquisition of Apply and what we're doing there in terms of frontline because you gotta meet candidates where they are. I'm looking at a billboard or a marketing piece and there's a QR code. I wanna check out this company. I wanna apply for a job. Give me a tool that's mobile enabled that I can just do it right then and not slow me down. And so that's really another area we're very excited about. Trev, was there anything else you wanted to add on there?
Let me bring in some data. All right. In our 2025 frontline hiring report, we took a lot of time to survey candidates and managers and to get their point of view. I love data, but I'm also very visual. So I took the pain points and put them up on a recruiting funnel. And you had two outliers. So one on the candidate side, one on the manager side. but there was a lot of commonality and friction. So candidates, they want to be able to showcase their skills, and it's in that screening lane. They want to be able to showcase their skills better, and they also want a more streamlined application. There is a crazy number. It's 60% of candidates that were surveyed said that they have abandoned an application because it was too long, too tedious, or to Lisa's point, it wasn't mobile friendly. And so that's why we're looking at that best in class experience for the candidate needs to be a little bit more conversational. It should look a little bit more like their buying experience for Amazon. If I can go and buy something in 4 clicks in under 2 minutes, but it takes me 48 years to apply to your job, there's a major issue there, right? So that's on the candidate side and the screening, and then the managers, they cite 62% of them said that the biggest obstacle for them is candidate quality. And so when we're looking at best in class in the screening lane, those are the problems that we're trying to solve. Because I think that we do have some of the technology and it is advancing enough that we can go and enhance that experience. And then Lisa's already talked about the next one, which is the interview scheduling. The years of our life that we have lost rescheduling and scheduling interviews, there should be a technology that should handle some of that conflict management. So the best in class, there's so much room for us to step into, and that's why I'm constantly asking Lisa, when can I talk about this? When can I talk about this? Because I love it because she'll share the ideas of things that they're working on, and then I get really excited. It's like, okay, I got to wait for us to build it. But when you ask, what does that best in class look like? It starts with what are the pain points that we need to solve for all three of the personas involved.
Very good. Let me go with a broader stroke question here. Where
Okay.
does good automation feel helpful and where does it feel intrusive?
Let me kind of reframe how to go into this. All right. My suggestion is if you're a TA leader or you're in the C suite and you want AI to really kind of be embedded somewhere in the recruiting process, start with a journey map. Lisa already talked about the three different personas. Journey map each step of the way for all of them. Identify and ask yourself this question: what is uniquely human? So, extending an offer that should never be done, in my opinion, that should never be done through AI. AI shouldn't lead that. That should be a conversation that I'm having with you. That's a human experience. So that's uniquely human. Now, sending the offer as soon as I say, hey, I hung up the phone and we're good to go. Nah, that's not uniquely human. So, should or could AI/automation handle that? If yes, what does that look like? So, good automation is going to be able to help you as a recruiter or you as an HR partner that's doing some of the recruiting. Is going to allow you to spend more time on the things that are uniquely human and stop chasing the paperwork, stop rescheduling the interviews and all of that other kind of stuff. That's where technology can really kind of step in and again, bring human back to a process that is uniquely human.
How do you decide what stays human and what should be automated? Is there a framework?
Yeah, I mean, it's following that journey map of just kind of doing those pinpoints. And I get asked this a lot. Is there something that you would just draw a line in the sand? I would, but that's Trent. That's me looking at the organizations that I've lived in, two or three that I suffered through, and going, okay, based off of that, this is where I would draw the line in the sand. But every organization is different. Every industry is different. And even within that industry and that organization, different levels are the same. Now, do I think that I could get AI to do an initial screening of a senior executive candidate that I used to recruit for? I don't know about that. I don't know that they're ready for that. Frontline all day long, twice on Sunday. They're okay with it. It's like get me in, get me out because speed is the name of the game. So again, it's really going to be a conversation that each company needs to have and they need to start having that now.
Okay. Hey, what's one thing recruiters should never give to AI? Okay.
The hiring decision, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hiring decision.
which candidate am I going to hire? I would not be giving that over to AI. Well, notwithstanding the fact some regulation doesn't even allow for it. So
And two, that you mentioned that there was a lot of ranking out there. That's great. That should be guidance. That should not be the end all be all decision because we've all looked at technology that we've used outside of ATS in our personal life and we go, that's not quite right. I don't want you making a decision based off of that. I think the same mindset needs to be true. Now, can it go through and just say, hey, Lisa is a 98% match for this? Okay, cool. Like if I've only got 15 or 20 minutes to screen through resumes, I may start there. But moving her from one to the next, maybe, yes, she's a 98% match, but the 2% is that she's never worked in HR technology. All right, well, maybe I need to talk to the hiring manager because that might require a mindset shift from the hiring manager to say, okay, would you like to have someone come in from outside of the industry to try to solve the problems that we're doing in a different way? So I do think, and again, just that one example, that ranking gave me more time to really kind of weigh in and go, well, this is something I need to have a human conversation with the hiring manager.
Very good. The ATS used to be a system of record. Right now, it feels like it's becoming something much bigger. What's changing in real time?
Mm, that's a great question. So, look, there's a lot of conversation out there, and there's a lot of discussion about what's going to happen with the software industry as it relates to AI. And I actually believe that the system of record becomes actually more important than less. I do believe that AI is enabling software systems across all industries, really, to become more. I'll use the term, I don't like the term integrated, but integrated, enabled, that there are ways of working the software system with its relevant AI into other processes and systems that actually expand its footprint versus narrow it. So the data, good software companies that build great AI that is highly used and consumed by their customers are actually making the system of record more robust because it's bringing in more data, more behavioral data, more action data, more of the information that customers really need to understand to get the most out of their software and AI assets as well as out of their business processes. So I actually think it's an expanding footprint, not a contracting one. And I think, but that does mean you have to build and deliver your AI not only responsibly, we talk about that all the time, but in a way that customers see value in it and are willing to adopt it and use it in their business processes because they understand the value proposition associated with it.
You mentioned domain specific AI embedded directly onto the system. Why is domain specific important versus layering in generic AI tools?
Yeah, so look, I think this is a great question, by the way, because the reality is, especially in an industry like HR and HR technology, you have to marry together the domain specific, we hate terms like that, but the domain specific need and business processes with what the technology can do and deliver. And so yeah, I'm sure there's a number of different generic tools that can be used as an example for job description writing and things like that. But having those that have some of the domain knowledge built into them, like to ensure that the compliance language is included, the EO, whatever language needs to be included, is probably a better idea than leveraging something generic. The other thing is that, sorry, I keep talking about compliance and regulation, but as that continues to increase in pressure on both the software providers and our customers, it's important to make sure that those wrappers are available and included in the system. So
And then, Lisa, I know if I'm listening to this and I hear domain specific agent, probably went, "What in the world?" But can you explain, like, when you say domain specific agent, can you just kind of unpack that a little?
yeah, and actually that's gonna give me a chance to say one other thing. I wanted to make sure we tagged in here, but domain specific means that it's a knowledge-based tool. It's built for purpose for a particular task or action that's part of a specific process. And so I'm sure in the travel industry there are lots of organizations building travel specific agents as an example. In HR tech, we have to build agents that are domain specific. They're built for helping with the interview process. They're built for executing onboarding procedures and things like that. So that's what I mean by domain specific. But I think one of the things I want to share about iCIMS AI strategy is that while we are going to continue to build domain specific agents and assistants, we also recognize that our customers may want to build their own on top of the data that flows through that system of record we talked about a little while ago. And we also have a very large partner network who's also they're not slowing down their own tools and services, and they're building agents that might need to coexist within or alongside our applications. So our AI strategy is one of a very open system that allows for a great deal of orchestration so that that talent acquisition process can flow very smoothly and seamlessly, whether you're using an iCIMS domain specific agent or a partner's agent, as an example.
And Denise, this actually gets back. You asked us earlier, why call it Coalesce AI? Because there is a confusion. And I remember being at one conference and I was talking to someone after I spoke, and their biggest concern as a TA leader is I've got this large recruiting team who barely use the tools that they already have. And every time I hear we're going to have an agent do this and an agent do this, all I can think of is I'm going to have to train this person on a new tool. And like our approach is, Lisa's already said, we're embedding AI. The human's always in control, but the AI is there running in the background, ready to help augment. And so to kind of help with the domain, having all these different domain specific agents, we're wrapping it in that common term that this is our Coalesce AI. It's all through there. You can pick and choose. You can pull one forward. You can tell one to shut up because you don't want to deal with it for whatever regulatory reasons in your particular organization. That's cool. That's totally fine. And that's why we kind of went with that nomenclature to let it be more about the experience that we're trying to create for all three different personas and less about we just built 42,000 agents to help your recruiting organization. I love AI. That would shut my brain down as a practitioner.
So now, what actually changes though when agents for hiring managers and recruiters live inside the ATS instead of outside of it?
Mm. This is the real meaning where they are, Lisa. Uh,
Well, I mean, like, so I mentioned earlier on, right? We don't see this as sort of something that sits beside you, it sits within the process. And so, what actually changes and so listen, I recognize whenever you adopt a new system, and Trent just alluded to this too, whenever you adopt a new system or a new tool, you are going through a change management process. You are adapting something new. You are going to behave differently as a result of it. And so you have to understand that. And you also need to measure like what you're going to get from. You have to know because I introduced this tool and now I'm able to, for example, our sourcing agent allows our customers to tap into their existing candidate databases and identify candidates before they go to external sources. Because they've already paid for and acquired these candidates, many of which may have gone through interview processes in the past, and there may be somebody in there that's the perfect candidate for a job you're recruiting for. That tool would be available to the recruiter within their ATS experience as they're executing that process. So they can just easily use it, but they need to understand what they're getting from it. What I'm getting from it is a quick, easy, fast way to determine if I've already got candidates in my pipeline or in my database that I can tap into before I go and take time to go identify candidates elsewhere. So I think that's really important. And just in terms of some of the other personas, I talked about the candidate experience. It's got to be a mobile solution. It's not an app. We candidates shouldn't have to download an app to actually apply for a job. They should be able to open a QR code or launch into a site and execute a process, and it be seamless. They never there's nothing there's no obvious handoffs and things like that. Hiring manager is a whole different game. That's another area that I get really excited about.
I completely agree with you. And I think the other thing that changes, Denise, is the value of work within the recruiting organization. So right now, the value of work is managing the process and getting someone from beginning to end. As we start looking at embedding AI in the process, again, the human's still in the loop, human's still in control, but that's going to open up and increase efficiencies. So I think that one of the behavior changes and one of the knowledge changes, I think is probably, I was trying to see if there was a better word, but as a TA leader, you can't just be saying, well, AI is making this do these things faster. You're really going to have to change your vernacular to say we are increasing the ROI because the recruiter's spending less time chasing down paperwork. Our sourcing agent actually went, to Lisa's point, we've already paid for these candidates who have applied through Indeed or LinkedIn or something else. Our sourcing agents actually already brought these to the process, so I am shortening the amount of time that the position is out there posted. So therefore, this revenue position that is very critical, it has a $12 million a year quota on it. I'm actually added potentially $1 million to the revenue by filling it 30 days faster by spending money on this AI tool. So I do think it's definitely going to change the experience, but it's also going to require recruiting and TA and HR to level up and get more into the business acumen and communicating that ROI in business KPI terms and using business language. For the love of God, can we get out of HREs? Time to fill does not mean anything to the C-suite. They could care less. Translate it to revenue, translate it to risk. So I've been a little easy on the TA industry because we've been so bogged down. I'm going to be a lot less forgiving as AI continues to move us into the value stream where we want to be, which is that human-centric approach.
Perfect. Now let's pivot a minute. TA leaders are accountable for hiring outcomes. How are you going to introduce AI into that process without creating new risk?
Well, I think this goes back to our responsible AI program and ensuring that the AI is governed correctly, that that human in the loop process is being executed the way it should be. I now so it's really interesting because what's happening from a regulatory point of view is certainly vendors have a level of responsibility to ensure that they are producing AI that does not introduce more risk to the talent acquisition process than already is there, right? And in fact, in some cases, I would argue that when you use a fully human approach and you do not introduce tools that help you execute the process, humans are biased by nature, right? So actually, the tools can reduce risk if implemented and used correctly. So that's a very important point, and I think that's something that should always be discussed when you're looking at introducing new AI technology and when you're going through these change management programs. But I think both the vendors have a responsibility, but the other challenge our customers face, especially like our large multinational customers that we talk to all the time, the regulation is putting a lot of that responsibility on our customers. And so I think it's a partnership, to be real. Obviously, customers have to determine what level of risk they're willing to take. They have to make sure that the AI or the tools that they're adopting are not increasing risk. And if they are, whether they're willing to take it. And we have to be transparent about what our tools do in terms of both performance and risk. So I think it's a very much a vendor customer partnership.
Trent, anything to add?
Oh, you're asking the wrong person because I always walk the knife's edge of compliance and risk. I knew what not to do, but I kind of pushed the limits of what to do. So let's stick with Lisa's answer.
Okay. All right. The big question everybody asks all the time: will AI replace recruiters?
No, no, I am so sick of this question. Denise knows my buttons to push. She always throws a question in there to get my blood pressure up. No, but will AI encourage and force TA to change, elevate, and evolve? Absolutely, unequivocally, yes. And you should be having those conversations today. This should be an exciting time, all right? If I were still in the TA suite, or HR leader, I'd be sitting down with my team and going, okay, let's look forward. What does utopia look like in your job? What are, do a little quadrant thing. What are all the things that bring value to the organization that you love doing and it doesn't even feel like work? Now let's go to the lower right. What are the things that are absolutely draining to you, but they're business necessary, but they don't really bring a lot of value? Okay, there's the target for AI and automation. Should we offload some of that stuff? And if so, how much more of the value work should we be able to do? So I wrote a piece for Fast Company. I don't remember. Last 6 months has been a blur, but it's been in the last 6 months about looking into 2030. What does the role of TA look like? And this is where Lisa and I get along well. Both of us spent most of our careers in finance. So I was a portfolio manager as a commercial lender. So I owned clients and prospects. They were mine. My job was to make sure that I knew what was going on to grow those relationships, nurture those relationships. I think that with AI moving upstream and helping TA kind of get out of the muck, we can become those talent portfolio managers for internal and external talent, as well as maybe even getting into, all right, you don't really have any recruiting needs, but Denise, your particular division, the company's already said in 12 years, your whole division is going to be automated or we're going to have agents that can do it. Let's have the conversation now. How do we rethink, reskill, and redeploy your current workforce over the next 2 years? That's where I see TA being able to go is stop being reactionary and more being like an actual agent. I've got an agent of Hollywood stars. I'm out looking for the next movie and I'm plucking the star that I think is going to be for the right role for the right movie. I think that's where it's going. So my encouragement is one, can we stop asking that question? And two, can we reframe it of what could TA actually become? I love you, Denise. That was not directed at you. That was more directed at the industry.
I know, but where will humans always be essential in hiring?
I think that's going to change. I mean, Lisa, we talk all the time about how fast things have changed just since 2023. I mean, if you think of what we were experiencing just working with Gen AI, which most people have access to, what the capabilities of it were then and what the capabilities of it are now, and that's in 3 years. So, like looking forward and going, what should be uniquely human? I think that's going to change on two things. One, what the future holds, but then two, the candidate. The candidate is going to become more accustomed to AI, so they may be willing for things that the three of us go, that needs to be absolutely human. In 3 years, they may go, I don't want to talk to a human. Just give me my offer letter, me sign it, and tell me where to show up. We don't know. We don't know.
I have a theory that Trent and I have not had a chance to actually kick this around yet, but there's two things that I believe are front and center for the recruiter community. Let's just say those people who are talent acquisition professionals, sourcers, whatever role you may be playing. But one is I do believe that role is going to change, and I think there's an opportunity for as much as it's been a process management job in many respects, there's an opportunity for it to become more of a knowledge worker because the smarter you are about where, when, and how to help fill jobs with the right candidates who are going to deliver the performance for the business, the the better you are at that role, right? We want people in jobs who are going to be high performing, deliver the results we're looking for or more, right? And if they're going to stick around, we don't want to have to continue to fill those roles because churn costs the business money. So I think there's a great opportunity for talent acquisition in general, that category of professionals to really become actually more important. I think the knowledge around skills and how skill, for example, 3 years ago, no one was recruiting for prompt engineers. That was not a thing, right? It's as technology has evolved, our customers, every company has a technology department. They're evolving their jobs. These are all the things that talent acquisition professionals have an opportunity to be smarter about and help facilitate getting the right candidates in for the right jobs. The other thing is, I think that one of the great challenges that many of our customers are experiencing, and we haven't talked about yet today, is that we use the term fraud and identity management somewhat loosely. And for Trent and I, who come from financial services where it's prevalent, especially if you work in credit card. There are a lot of things going on because AI tools allow candidates to blast applications to 500 jobs instantaneously, where people can basically spoof their where they're located. Where do you really know that is actually Trent you're interacting with and not his best friend who lives next door? So there's a lot of things that I think are going to be newly introduced responsibilities to the talent acquisition process. And I think this is an area we've been spending a lot of time in the last year in particular. And I think it's going to continue to be an evolving area for talent professionals to be thinking about and fit and having solutions for how to mitigate some of those risks as an example in your business. Trent, we haven't had a chance to brainstorm that one. So
Oh, well,
next time we get together, right?
that is on the docket. That is on the docket.
Yeah, you've both seen data on AI freeing up recruiter time. Let's talk about that. What does that
Mhm.
freedom actually translate to?
Oh, this is great. So, I am only gonna tell you, Denise, because you and I go way back, but then sitting on a little bit of a secret, we have partnered with Aptitude Research, and we've actually gone through and we've surveyed TA organizations because the other thing that I'm kinda tired of is hearing about theoretical AI. I wanna know where are TA organizations actually leveraging AI? What does that adoption rate look like? And then in turn, what does that potential ROI look like? And we're actually releasing an AI adoption report, and we really get into that. And so I can't give all of the data, but I will tell you the highest ROI that we're seeing is kind of in that screening and that interview process. I think that for a lot of the market, they're okay with kind of using AI in low risk areas like help me draft an email, help me tighten up this job description. And that's kind of where we're seeing a lot of the adoption. But we are starting to see a couple of surprises that I wish I could tell you, but I can't until the report comes out. But the question that we asked after that is that, okay, with this free time, where are recruiters investing it? And it did my heart so nicely to see that they're investing it back in relationships. So remember that uniquely human thing, right? It's back with hiring managers, it's back with the candidates. They're also looking at some of their stats to understand, okay, how can I do things quicker, faster, smarter, and more efficient? So I think that the real ROI there is going to translate into, on average, what percentage, and this will be in the report, there's a certain percentage of recruiting organizations that say that the AI that they have implemented has actually increased the freedom by X number of hours. So, like more than 5 hours. And you can just do some simple math. If the average base salary is 70,000 for your recruiting, then they save 5 hours a week. You've got 10 recruiters at $35 an hour. There's your hard cost that's saved. So I think that's just one metric that we're going to unpack in the report. There's a couple of other angles that we're going to take a stab at, but definitely if you're listening to this and it's before March the 23rd, make a note, go and download it. iCIMS.com, iCIMS.com, resources, talent insights, and it should be out there. And if you're listening after, you can go and it should be downloadable. So more info.
Awesome. And to Lisa, I have a question. What has to be true about AI for it to actually strengthen human judgment instead of replacing it?
Most people, I hope, have downloaded ChatGPT or one of the other generally available apps out there to ask it questions and see what kind of information it can provide for you on planning your next vacation or where you should what's the next kind of food you think you should try and eat or explore. But I think the real answer in terms of strengthening human judgment is that it has to be transparent and explainable. It has to be additive. It is a tool. What we don't want is we don't want, and I was having this conversation with a friend of mine earlier today. So we don't want AI to dumb us down, right? We want AI to help us be smarter and help us use human intelligence to make better decisions in our daily lives, in our business, and so forth. And so I think the way that's accomplished is by the things that the AI does are are meaningful, and that the way they're done is by providing us with the right level of information back that we can use to discern and make good decisions. So that's Lisa's point of view. I'm sure Trent, you probably have some thoughts on that.
We're fairly aligned on that.
Let's recap. We started today with the idea that AI doesn't solve everything, but smart automation does. So if TA leaders walk away with one mindset shift about AI and automation, what should it be?
First of all, my view is don't be afraid of it. Like fear is a very powerful human emotion, and it can be very consuming, and it can also drive you to avoid things that you really might want to engage with. So, first of all, I'm my be exploratory, be willing to try things, be willing to ask questions to understand if it can add value to your personal life, your business life, whatever it might be. The second thing would be that you really need to make sure, in particular in our business, HR technology, talent acquisition, that you have to embed it responsibly. When you go through those change programs to adopt AI, you need to make sure that you are building your business processes in such a way that you aren't introducing more bias, or that you're leveraging those tools correctly, and use analytics, use data to tell you whether you're getting the right outcomes you're looking for. So it's really there to enhance your workflows, take away, we use the term mundane tasks, take away the mundane tasks, allow you to be using your human intellect to make better decisions and be a better talent acquisition professional. And then the other thing is every organization has their own governance programs. I think what's going to happen with many of our customers is that their governance standards are going to have to continue to ratchet up, just like our own are, because of what's going on from a compliance and regulatory point of view.
So mine, that was a very educated answer. Mine's going to sound dumb now, but mine is sit down and figure out how you can turn your Tony Stark team into Iron Man. What is that going to look like? Paint that vision, get your team excited, and then run through the exercise. What's uniquely human and what should be given to AI or automation, and what does that look like? And start charting your journey. And don't think that you have to change everything all at one time. If your team is not, I mean, if they're terrified of AI, focus on automation. Hey, first part of the process, how can we enhance the candidate experience? They want more communication. Okay, cool. Let's create a quick little automation that every time I move them from one bin or one swim lane to the next, it sends them a little email with a little graphic that says, "You are here." If any of us have been lost in a mall or something, it's like, "Where's the where's the star?" I think that just something simple like that, that's probably the biggest piece of advice. The last piece of advice, I'm gonna take governance from a different angle. There's a lot of misconception by candidates in the market. Most of us that have been in recruiting for a while know that we would put in DNQs on the front end of any application, and that's an automation. If this, then that. If I need a software developer with 5 years of React and you have 4, you say you have 4, you get an automatic email, okay? What if after someone applies, and hopefully, if you're with iCIMS, it's going to be a lot more conversational. So you're not going to have the drop off. It's not going to feel like you're applying for a mortgage. Once they get to the end of that, how much trouble would it be to have a little screen that pops up and says, here's your candidate journey. Here's where the human is involved. Here's where automation is involved. Here's where we leverage AI. It is something quick, it's something simple, and it is one of the easiest steps to establish some transparency and guard your candidate experience as well as your brand in the market.
Awesome. Great conversation.
Well,
Appreciate all of this information.
thank you.
All right. Thank you.
It's been fun.